Namaste. Welcome to the teachings that go along with the clinical teachings that you've experienced during this YouTube channel. The ones where I'm wearing the turquoise dress. But these additional teachings are not always essentially a part of the original clinical, but depending upon the person I'm working with, they come in very, very handy. And especially the one that I'll be reviewing today. It's called the Communication Assertiveness Model. I do not take credit for it. I learned it when I was going for my third degree. I have the associate's degree, the bachelor's degree, and I was going to Nova Southeastern University back in the 80s for my master's degree in counseling psychology. The course that I took, one of the first courses that I took, was called GC 101, General Counseling 101. It was taught by a woman named Dr. Judith Horowitz. I knew the day that she taught that course that that teaching would be critical to my whole life. And indeed, I have used it, I've thought about it, I've taught it to so many others I couldn't possibly begin to count. So thank you, Dr. Horowitz, wherever you are. I hope perhaps you're listening to the video one of these days. It's not a very complicated teaching. It's literally only 4 steps. But it's based on the fact that most of us humans have a natural tendency, especially with the people that we love the most. And perhaps at various times, those are the people we might be sharing our living space with. And we have a tendency to blame, accuse, which is even worse, the other for our mental, emotional state. The reality is that every one of us human beings is totally responsible for how they feel, totally responsible for their emotional state. Caution yourself to prevent yourself from giving your power away to another person, even someone that you've lived with for years that you love very much. Take responsibility for your joy and your happiness, as well as your sadness, as well as your anxiety or depression. Take responsibility for it. You have created it, you own it, and you have the power to change it. So, what I would like to share with you, the first step in this communication model, is that this is a way of being not aggressive, like some people you may know, but assertive. Assertive is a positive characteristic trait that any one of us can demonstrate we have the availability to generate. Assertive means that you do take responsibility. I take responsibility for who I am, and I take responsibility especially with the people I love the most, that I would choose to hurt the least, and that I would like to have a harmonious, peaceful, beautiful, supportive, encouraging, uplifting relationship with. So the first challenge to that is the fact that very often, if we are experiencing an issue with another person, we as human beings have a tendency to blame the other person for something that they have done which has rattled our internal mental emotional state. And sometimes we don't even get in touch with the real reason that we're upset. Maybe we're upset about something that emotionally goes back to our upbringing with our moms, our dads, or whatever, and we might haul off and accuse the partner of leaving the cap off the tube of toothpaste. How come you always do that? Just when I need the toothpaste, the cap is gone, the toothpaste is dried out, and I have to deal with that. When all the time I might be upset about a really significant issue that took place the night before. So the first step in this communication assertiveness model is to name the action that has you in a state of disarray, in a state of upset, in a state of untogether. And it starts off with, name the person you're talking to. That's always very helpful. So-and-so. When you say or do, and you name the action that is bringing you to use this 4-step model of communication. I will tell you, the first few times you try it out, it sounds a little contrived. But you can let your partner, or your child, or your adult in your life, or your relative, or your neighbor, or your friend, whomever you're using the model of communicate, your boss, or your coworker. You can let them know that you are using this model of communication. And you're consciously doing it, even though it's a little contrived, so that you can get your point across effectively without hurting the other person. And most importantly, without raising their emotional ire, their emotional reaction. So, when you say or do, you name the action. I interpret it to mean. And in that second statement, you give the other person your interpretation. So often, so many arguments can be reversed and caught at the very beginning before they turn into major issues by just giving the other your interpretation. And it may be that you hear from the other, oh my gosh, that's not what I meant. You misinterpreted what I was saying, thinking, or doing. This is what I meant. And right away, you've made a step in the right direction of healing the relationship before the relationship goes off track. Step number 3, it leaves me feeling. And if you're not too familiar with the world of psychology, and you're not too familiar with too many feelings, their names, a good little clue is to use mad, sad, glad, or bad. That pretty much covers the whole range. But if I was working with you, I would hand you an emotional sheet that literally has 50 emotions on one piece of paper, along with a little diagram of a face, an angry face, a happy face, a joyful face, a sad face, etc., etc. So there are many emotions beyond I'm fine, or beyond I'm mad, or beyond I'm angry. So some of the emotions, angry, sad, bad, disappointed, but using mad, sad, glad, or bad kind of rings a little tone in your head, and it will at least get you through this model of communication. And step number 4, excuse me, which is the most important one, is before you approach the other with this model of communication, you have already meditated on it, thought about it, pondered it, and come up with a plan of action that would supersede what happened that got you into the state that you were in that required the model. So step number 4 on this one little piece of paper says, and what I'd like to do about it is. And in that step, you communicate to the other your plan of action that you would like to put forth as a possible prevention for getting you into the jam that brought you to the state to begin with. You will be very pleasantly surprised by the results that this model of communication and assertiveness can create in your lives. Now what I'd like to do, that I finished that communication model, it's that easy, that simple, easy to remember, easy to memorize. I'd like to add a little tag on to this video. And the tag is a statement that says, prepare yourself to shift from the power of diagnosis to empowerment of self. Most of us get so involved after a diagnosis of letting it lay on our hearts, on our bodies, on our beingness, that we forget that ourselves are totally empowered. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that teaching. And I would just like to suggest that you consider how much power you give over to a diagnosis by your medical doctor, your psychologist, your psychiatrist, your internist, even your dentist. Consider how much power you give to those people that tell you that there is something that we have recognized is in your body or your mind or your spirit. In that case, we're talking about the rabbi, the minister, or whatever, is saying to you, you know, you've gone astray and this is what's going on. So allow yourself to shift from the power of diagnosis to empowerment of self with a capital S. Thank you very much. Namaste. See you again.